Today I want to give you a walkthrough of how I made my track Your Favorite Color. I released this track about 2 weeks ago, and I want to use this opportunity to explain this track because I have a comment on my last video. Name is ILO76. He was asking if I can explain each mixer channel, the processing that I apply and why did I apply that. He was asking this because he's a beginner, and frankly I'm still trying to understand a lot of the thing about music production, so I will do my best to explain the thing that I do and hopefully you learn something of it. That's pretty much it about the introduction, and I'm just gonna play a little bit the drop section so you can get the idea of this track. It is a progressive house and the track sounds like this. So that's the track, and I'm gonna start from the beginning all the way to the outro. And the first thing that we have is the chord. I had 2 layers. Let's look at the dry signal. I'm using a piano from the Arturia Big collection, and then I'm using a synth from one of the native plugins from FL. So this is the piano. It's panning on the right side because it's already routed on my mixer channel, as you can see over here, and it's panning to the right, so that's the reason why the dry signal is on the right side. And then we have the synth, the dry signal again. Really nice. And this is the wet signal. This is how it sounds, the piano. It has a filter, as you can see over here, so let's play it from here. So that was the scene. This is the piano. Really nice. Processing wise for the chords, I have saturation knob and EQ. As you can hear the scene, it has a lot of the high information. So that's the reason why I'm removing some of the low and I'm just keeping the high frequency. And for the piano, I have an overdrive, an EQ, and I'm keeping some of the high frequency over here, but I have some of the low frequency. Then I have a reverb, and I have these 2 chords routed into a bus channel, which is where I apply the heavy process. My processing for the bus channel, it's pretty simple, I guess. I like to use a saturation, reductive EQ, compression, and additive EQ. And after that, I like to add any effects plugin that I want, delays, reverb, sometimes flanger, and some of the stuff like that. But usually that's my processing for the buses. In this case, for the chord, I have radiator with the preset Beat of a Grid. Then I'm using Neutron. I have an equalizer, exciter, and compressor. Then I have a sculpture with the Synth preset and about 50% the amount. This is just for removing some of the annoying frequency. After that, I have Valhalla Vintage with the 80 Springy preset. So then I have this Pro Q3 removing the high frequency and the low frequency. After that, I have an OTT with 10% the depth, and at the end the filter automation that you can see over here, that it is on the playlist. Then we have the pads. So I have 3 layers. So I have this one. a sustain note, the second one, a plucky sound, and the last one, so this one is more of a glitchy type of sound. On the mid sounds like this. It's very subtle since these elements are the one placing on the stereo side. Then, for the processing on the pads, I just, well, the first one is kinda heavy on processing. So this is from Silent, as you can see over here. I'm pretty sure, as always, I didn't change anything of the parameter inside Silent, just the processing. Let's hear how it sounds, the dry signal. For the processing, I had a little radiator, Pro Q3, a chorus. This one is from Arturia, but if you have FL Studio, you have one of these imitation, emulation, I think is the word that I should say, which is this one. Let me look for it. Vintage chorus. So you have this vintage chorus, which is the emulation from the Juno, I think, something like that. So yeah, it is a chorus. After that I have RC20 with the vinyl 1 preset and the noise about 25%. Wobble is off. Yeah, wobble. Well, I did make an automation for the wobble, as you can see over here, and distortion, and another EQ for the second one. For the processing, I just put an EQ with this shape. Next I had Supermassive with the Lost Saucer preset, 30% the mids. And since these are some of the elements that you want them on the background of the mids, that's the reason why you want to use longer decays and the mids level a bit higher compared to some of the other elements. OTT and gross beat. Next I have this, so the last one is a loop. For the processing I apply crystallizer, pretty low filter, supermassive again, and an EQ with this shape. And on the boss channel I have another reverb from Valhalla Vintage, and this one is to put all of them in the same place so they sound more cohesive. And the preset is the 80 Talisman. Then I have an EQ, removing the high frequency and the low. Then I have OTT, and lastly this side cube with the thickener preset. And then I put a Kitstar, a filter automation, which is this one that you can see over here, the filter and the resonance over here. Then I have the build dots, and the build dots, let's see the channels. Okay, so this one is the build dots. This is the wet signal. So for the build dots I only have this snare and this other percussion snare. That's pretty much it. And this one is the stem file. But on the boss channel for the build dots I apply Decapitator with this setting over here, an EQ from FabFilter, and I use the preset Room 1 mod removal and control. OTT, little play, about 15% the mids. And well, this is the setting. An EQ, and I was working on some of the details of this track when this plugin came out, so I decided to give it a try. And I ended up buying, and this is the preset that I use for this transition, which is Echo Thrill. I had this other preset, but that one is taking place on this second build dot, and it sounds like this. some of the delay and washout effects, and this is the first one. It's a bit of a difference, and I have this EQ filter that I rename it just so I can automate the high frequency right over here, as you can see over here, just so at the time that the drop hit it's a bit more powerful by taking some of the high frequency on the build out section. And then we have the baseline, and on the baseline it's the same playing throughout the entire section. I had 3 layers: the mid, and that is the wet signal, the high, and the sub. And in this case I want to take this opportunity to use ILO as a reference to explain why I do this process. So I like to keep the sub and the baseline separated, because if you want to apply any stereo effects plugins on the baseline, that way you don't have any problem with the sub. You can work around because some plugins have an EQ, a built-in EQ, so that way the effects that you want to apply doesn't affect a certain frequency. Let's say that you remove anything below 120 Hz. But it's better to just have everything separated, so that way you can go crazy with the baseline, whatever you want to apply. You just make sure that, as you can see over here, let me show you. So this is for the baseline and this is for the sub. So just take care of remove the sub frequency from the baseline, and this one, which is the sub, just the sub frequency, keep it in between. Sometimes they might blend together, which is okay. It's not a big deal. I think that's what I've been doing because I like the way it sounds, and that's the reason why sometimes I keep it like that. Sometimes I like to keep very strictly remove everything at a certain frequency. Depends on the keynote that you are playing, so that's something to keep in mind. For the processing on the individual channel, I just have a bit of distortion in an EQ, and same for the high one, this a distortion in EQ. And on the boss channel, as you can see, so on the boss channel, like I say, I follow the principle distortion, reductive EQ, compressor, and additive EQ. So I have Saturn 2, then I have this EQ, and this is just to remove the frequency that I don't want. I didn't make any reductive EQ besides just this one. Then I have this compressor, even though it is a really static signal, but just to tame some of those peaks that might be in the signal. Next, I'm using radiator as a additive EQ, just to add that extra warmth or crispiness. But then I have this other EQ, just removing some of the stereo information below 200 Hz, and pretty much that it. And lastly, I have an OTT, because why not? So then we got the, for the boss, it's just a distortion, an EQ, and a limiter. And then this one is just an EQ with a filter automation, which is that one over here. It's just removing the sub at the time that the drop is about to hit, and in between the drop to give a little bit of tension. Then I have the break melody. It sounds like this. I had 2 layers for the break section, and this is the first one. Really nice. The second one. For this one, I'm just going to show you the boss channel. So first we have Isotope Trash, and I'm using the clarity preset, which is inside the classy texture, and about 20% the mix. Then an EQ with this shape, it has a lot of reductive EQ, as you can see. Decapitator, OTT, an Echo Boy Jr. with dark analog buds preset and about 50% the mix, which is quite a lot. And then I have Valhalla Vintage, 30% the mix level. And then I have a filter automation over here, and I'm using Transif again with the Easy Essential preset, which is this one over here. So that's for the break melody. So then we have the leads for the drop melody. I have 5 layers. On the first section I'm only using 4 layers, and on the second section I had the 5 layers. So this is the first one, the wet signal. Second. The third one. And the last one. And on the boss channel for this one, same principle, distortion, an EQ, compressor, OTT, Echo Boy with the same preset, the dark analog buds, but in this case I only have about 15 or 20% the mix level. Valhalla Vintage, and then Snaphead with the stereo combo preset. I'm not sure exactly why I use this, but as you can see I also have another reverb, and why do I have 2 of those? Oh, I got it. Excuse me for that. So Snaphead, it might be a creative effect, which is this automation that you can see over here, and Fruity Balance is the one creating this docking effect in this section over here. So yeah, and Valhalla Vintage, it's just to create the reverb effects over here. And the last one, which is on this extra boss channel, because I run out of space for the next effect, so I just send this to another boss channel. And on the extra boss channel I just have this extra EQ with some reductive EQ. I have this counter melody playing too. It sounds like this. Really plucky sound. And I use for this one again silent. Processing wise I have Decapitator, RC20, EQ, Phase Mistress, and I use 7x3 rank up BPM preset, 100% the wet signal, okay, OTT, Echo Boy Jr, 20% the wet signal. Lastly I have this Valhalla Vintage, which is the 80 digital preset, 20% the mix level. This is how it sounds in the mix. Let me just mute it. Just to add that extra elements over there. And I keep using a bit of the notes over here on the break section, as you can see over here. And this is how it sounds. I'm gonna play the percussion, the kick and the snare at the same time. This is how it sounds. So we had the keep, and the clap. For the percussion on the boss channel, I had the capitator, an EQ, compressor, Cashmere Essential again, another compressor, and I think the limiter is also taking effects on this one too. Then Saturn to have a bit of the crispiness or grittiness on this percussion boss channel. Little plate with this setting, as you can see, not too much on the mid level. Lastly, this EQ, just making sure to remove the low frequency and taking care of the harshness in this frequency section around 8K. That'll be all for the percussion channel. And then also, as you can see, the same transition effect sample on the second break. So I had this other arpeggiator playing on the second break. I use Sync Master 1 and the preset is the Alien Jungle Arc. For the processing on this one I use Distortion EQ with this shape, as you can see, RC20. I used the Lush and Crunch Guitar 2 preset. I don't remember if I changed some of the parameter in here. Another EQ, OTT, and the Transit plugin again, which is being automated over here, and it's increasing the mid level right at the end. So this is how it sounds at the end. It's really subtle. I think just a filter, a bit of delay and reverb. Filter Freak 2 over here, which is, that'll be all for the second break section, the only difference that I have. Let me double check. And like I said, the build has a bit of a difference because of the second preset that I use in Transit in this part over here. Oh, I have another leak playing on the second drop, this one over here. It has a lot of high frequency on it, and let's hear that one on the mids. I just used Transit, Valhalla Room, and an EQ with this shade over here. And I had this bowling automation, which is because in this part it's kinda low, but right over here in this section it's really high. So just to kinda keep that under control. I just ran out of memory while I was recording this video, and the only thing that I want to show is my master chain. And since the first video that I post in this channel, I've been using the same master chain. The only thing that I have changed is the setting and the compression, because each track is different, you know. The other reason why I only use the same plugin is because I've been thinking about getting a Apple laptop, the one with the M1 chip, and the plugins that I've been using, I've seen that they are pretty stable at the moment. So if that ended up happening, I know that those plugins gonna be fine and there's not gonna be any problem in my project because of the plugin doesn't work properly or something like that. That's the only reason why I only use the same plugin and nothing really new. And if you have, let's say if you have the FabFilter bundle, pretty much you have everything you need, and the Soundtoy bundle for the creative process, that's perfect too. So there's no need to keep buying every new plugin that you see, but that's the other reason why I don't like to get new plugins at the moment. So let me show my master chain. And the first thing that I have on my master chain is Patcher, which is a, which is a setting that I just have ready to create an automation clip for the low frequency, high frequency, the width, and the volume automation. So I'm just creating an automation clip for the volume. I'm reducing about 2 dB or so right before the drop hits, and I'm resetting the level back again at this point to create that extra impact on the drop. And I'm just removing some of the high frequencies over here. After that, I'm using Saturn 2 with the Saturate and Color presets, and I'm using about 75% the mix level of these presets. Next, I'm using Patcher, but I have a couple plugins inside, and the first one is Oxford Inflator, 31% the effects, and the curve -3%. Next, I have this EQ, removing some of the low and high frequency. Then I'm just removing any stereo information that might be in the sub frequency area, and some reductive EQ, as you can see over here, not too many. I don't cut too much on this master EQ, maybe just 2 dB max or 3, but that's about it. And if I feel that I need to fit something, I like to go back to the channel itself, whatever it might be causing the problem. So I would like to fit on its own channel itself rather than trying to fix it with the master EQ. Then I have this compressor, and I'm using the setting from this preset, mastering tight, and the only thing that I change is the threshold level, and the makeup gain, because I'm just reducing about 2 to 3 dB on this compressor. Next, I have this other compressor, which is a emulation from the SSL compressor, but this one is for free, as I mentioned before. And I have 10 milliseconds for the attack and 1 millisecond for the release, 3:1 for the ratio. For this one, I think that I reduced about 4 dB with this compressor. Then I have Shadow Hill, same thing, 2 to 3 dB for the optical and the discrete compressor. After Shadow Hill, I have Awesome. And what I did in this case was I put a lot of compression over here, as you can see, but I'm taming the reduction level with this parallel compressor setting that you have over here available. So at the end, I'm just compressing about 2 to 3 dB. I did the same thing for each band with this setting. I didn't use the exciter setting in this case for this trap, but next with the imager, I didn't do too much with it. I used the analog setting and the ceiling -0.3, and this is the threshold. After this Ozone Night, I use the T-Rack compressor, and I have to distribute the final gain stage with 3 limiters, so I can have a bit of a coloration from each plugin. I think that way, by using just one limiter, I feel that it is way too much boosting. That's the reason why I like to use 3 limiter. And the final plugin for this chain is this Pro L2. I had the punchy setting, and I'm boosting quite a lot on this one at the end too, because I like to have a lot of headroom on my track, so that's the reason why I ended up boosting a lot on my limiters. So I think that'll be all for this trap. I think that I covered everything. So thank you for watching this video. I hope that you learned something of it, and if you have any question about some of the plugins or the way how I did any specific element on this trap that I might forgot or I didn't explain pretty well, just let me know in the comment. And thank you for keep streaming this trap, and it's available to stream in every major platform. You can find the link in the description down below. Thank you for watching, and see you next time.